Well, this is going to be a lightning recap of day 2 of the Honinbo 77th Honinbo final game 1 between Iyama Yuta and Ichiriki Rio. So Iyama is black, Ichiriki is white. So this move here you see is the sealed move that Ichiriki has made. This is also the AI recommended move. Now at this point, this black group is not completely alive. This black group over here is also not completely alive. So black's got two groups. So AI puts white at 90%. So white is a little bit ahead, but 90% at move 80 isn't really enough to usually carry you to the game always. So there's, according to my calculation, there's still a 25% chance that black can win from this position. So it's playable for both sides, but it's definitely a little bit harder for black. So let's see what happens in the game. So black needs to stay alive by playing here, and black also reinforces itself. And now white has to put pressure on this black group over here. So, well, black has to run, and then white goes here, and instead of extending, he makes a jump to threaten these 3 black stones here. So let's see how black responds. Hanates, extends, white comes out, and now black instead, after got strong over here, puts more pressure on these white stones. But white has played this attachment, so if black ignores, white should just go Hane and put more pressure on this white black group. So so before moving out with this black group, black plays on the left side to prepare to make his black group a bit stronger first. Okay, so white is strong here, so white decides to fight. So now black really has to move out with the black group. Now at this point, when black Ataris, this is the feels like the beginning of the end for Ichiriki. So this is where black kind of fights back and really puts more pressure on white. So firstly, white didn't really fight this ko and just connects, and then when black Ataris, white also connects. So it feels like white has gone back 2 steps, and black is has advanced too. And this is, remember, this is where black is still behind. So maybe Ichiriki is thinking that once he connects, moving these 2 stones by making a tiger mouth here would be a lot more powerful. So so that's why Ichiriki decides to do this. And now black just touches and really starts to put pressure on white's shape here, just playing really tightly to try and make white a dumpling later on. So as I said, so Ichiriki decides to move out. That's the power of this move. So black also tries to make a dumpling of white over here in future. Now this is an interesting point in the game. This is where Ichiriki Ataris. So I guess now, as you can see here, these 2 groups are not connected. So I guess Ichiriki doesn't like to just do this, because that would just too bad. Even though this is connected and capture this, that's just a really good connection for black. Because black's group here technically not that weak and not that strong. It's got cutting points here. So Ichiriki doesn't want to do this. So I guess what Ichiriki is really thinking was something like this. So again, Atari, if black comes out, Atari one more and connect. So black doesn't get that Atari on top, but obviously Ichiriki Iyama is not going to let him do that. So Iyama just played beautifully here, just disconnect the 2 groups. This is where I feel Iyama will kind of start to turn around his game. Remember, he was at 10% just at the start of day 2. I feel like now he's kind of getting into his groove and having a go at winning this game. And this is really I feel like the turning point. It also happens to be a turning point. Okay, so let's keep going. So eventually black makes white a dumpling down there. And now it feels natural at this point for white to cut and just separate these two groups, because technically this white black group is not completely safe, because white always has this Atari down here, and of course this black group is not alive yet. So this feels like a natural move, and I believe this is also AI's recommended move. But Ichiriki decides to slide under here. I guess this sends a signal to Iyama that, hey, I feel that this white group is not so strong. You know, I feel that this could be in trouble. So I'm going to take care of this white group instead of cutting here. And I believe this is a very strong psychological signal for Iyama. So Iyama just says, oh, well, if you want to do this, I'm going to disconnect you. So Iyama disconnects. This feels like a Q player's ways of disconnecting by attaching first and then cutting and then Atari. But okay, so now this group becomes a lot stronger. And the thing is, this white group actually still not alive. There's only one solid eye here. There's no solid eye that you can see here. Plus, this white group cannot die. Otherwise, it's just too big. So now Ichiriki is in a little bit of a trouble. So Ichiriki plays the probe here. I guess the idea is that, you know, if black plays elsewhere, then in the case of an emergency, white has this way to connect under, just to help this group. So, but Iyama says no, you're not even having that. So it cuts here. So now, so later on, when white plays here, black can just Atari. There's no emergency backdoor exit for white anymore. Okay, so, and after cutting this group off, now black really starts to put pressure on this white group. Remember, this white group is not alive. It just cannot die. It cannot just die. So white tries to make some eye shape, connect Atari. And this is also another psychological warfare from Ichiriki, just to push at this point. He says, actually, your corner has issues too. So this is the right moment to make this move. Connects, and Iyama plays here. So Ichiriki ends up losing this whole tail, which is what, you know, puts Ichiriki behind. So surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, Ichiriki is still in a playable position. So he's at around 12%. So which at this point in the game, it's still playable, even though he lost his huge tail here. So that tells you a little bit about how big the advantage Ichiriki had at the beginning. So so now this group still needs one more move to live. So I guess one of the questions I had watching the game was, why didn't black just play here and just completely destroy this eye? Now it turns out that after white Ataris, I can play here. Black has to live like this, and white has a Tetsuji here, which is to play here. So for black to live, it's actually quite simple. Black can just play here to live, but what that means is white now has this as kind of like a sente. If black destroys white's eye, then white can play here and fight a ko. And so this black group would actually be in if this black group dies, then it's not that great. So because of this ko, that can happen. So that I think that's why black didn't play here and instead just play what he played in the game, which is just here, just to capture. So now white has to cause some trouble here and just fight, because technically if you look at this, there's still those moves still exist. So white is not dead yet, because white can still play here and play that ko. Now after this black group lives and white is connected, this black group now has to live. So that's why black played here. And now black comes back to play this move to remove the threat that we talked about there. So now white really has to try and live. So lift here. And the next biggest battle is over here. So black can live in the corner. So leave some RG here, potentially a Ko in the future. And this is a very beautiful, interesting battle here, where it just ends up being a really complicated Ko. So they start fighting this Ko, and this Ko Atari. You see how this Ko evolve into a Ko in the corner and a Ko here? It just becomes really complex. Now at this point, white decides to get out of the Ko. What that means is this white group is now dead. So white invaded here, and white captured these two stones and made this white's territory, but white lost his group. But what white gained was also a Ko in the corner. And remarkably, at this point, the game was actually quite even. It's like 50-50. And at this point, another brilliant psychological warfare from Iyama. So the AI says at this point, Iyama should just play elsewhere, like maybe just play here. But instead, Iyama took this point. Now, which at this point, actually, this is a big, supposedly a big mistake by Iyama, according to AI. But I see it as basically just another psychological warfare that Iyama's trying to play. Basically, Iyama is saying, well, do you dare not make a move here, right? And the threat is, of course, if white plays here, black can turn here, and they're down to Bayomi, and Iyama is saying, well, maybe you can read this out, but have you calculated all the code threat that this can generate? It's really brilliant psychological warfare to take some point. But because if white responds here locally, then this would have gained some points for Iyama. And this kind of worked because AI says white should just play here, and if black does this, this is at best. Oops. Right. So, for example, I don't know. So for black to kill this group at this point, black has the Atari here, but that would give white the first take. So, feels like the reasonable result here locally is for black to connect. So this is actually just Seki. So actually not so bad. So I think that's why AI says white should ignore this black's threat and just play elsewhere. But of course, Ichiriki kind of chickened out and he just played here. And after that brilliant psychological warfare, black does his Atari, white makes a correct decision, connects. So you see, white finished off the Ko here and lost his group to capture these two white stones. But these two white stone is now savable with a Ko. So, but in exchange, white only got this Ko in the corner. So white's given up quite a bit to fight the Kos here already. So. Now at this point, this obviously is not a move that can kill the corner, so it's just a big yosei if that. So Ichiriki makes the right move, which is to connect. So now this black group is dead. And Iyama jumps. And this is where Ichiriki made another Yosei mistake. Now, according to AI, Ichiriki should just turn here. And the idea here is that the next biggest move is for black to connect. And later on, white reserves the right to fight this Ko and basically gain more points here. But instead, Ichiriki Atari connect and got Gote, and black connected here. So white lost the right to fight that Ko and gain some points here. And basically after this point, white is pretty much just lost. And only at the end of the game, white only lost by half a point. And I guess that was the I think at this point Iyama has already counted. He knew that he's either going to win by 1.5 points or half a point, so he just left it at that.